Picture this. Someone works 2 years to save $10,000. They skip vacations, they meal prep, they say no to things that cost money. And then, in one quiet, well-intentioned decision, they erase nearly all of that progress without spending a single dollar. Most people who reach $10,000 in savings feel something powerful: relief, pride, a sense of arrival. The number feels large enough to matter, and so the instinct is to protect it, hold it, keep it somewhere safe. And that instinct, though completely understandable, is exactly where the mistake begins. Here is what is actually happening inside that safe savings account. If the account earns 0.5% interest per year, but inflation is running at 3.5%, the money is losing 3% of its purchasing power every single year. The number on the screen stays the same, or even grows slightly. But what that money can actually buy is quietly shrinking. This is called inflation erosion, and it is one of the most dangerous forces in personal finance precisely because it is invisible. Think of $10,000 sitting in a low-yield savings account as a block of ice left on a warm counter. Nobody is chipping away at it. Nobody is spending it. But the heat, the slow, steady heat of inflation, is doing the work anyway. In 10 years, that $10,000 may still read $10,000. But in terms of real purchasing power, it could be worth closer to $7,400. That is $2,600 gone, not from spending, but from standing still. Now, flip that picture. The same $10,000 invested in a diversified index fund with a historical average return of around 7% annually. R grows to approximately $19,600 in 10 years. Same starting point, same person. The only difference is the decision made on day one. That gap, $7,400 versus $19,600, is not luck or income or financial genius. It is the cost of one mistake, treating saving as the finish line when it is actually just the starting line. The mistake is not recklessness. It is not gambling or bad spending. The mistake is conflating saving with investing. These are two completely different tools with two completely different jobs. Saving is about preservation and access, keeping money available for short-term needs. Investing is about growth, putting money to work so it compounds over time. Using a savings account to do the job of an investment portfolio is like using a bicycle to cross a continent. It is not wrong. Or it will just never get the distance needed. This distinction matters because most financial education stops at the savings milestone. Build an emergency fund. Save 3 to 6 months of expenses. That advice is correct, but incomplete. Once that foundation is in place, the next step is entirely different, and most people are never clearly told what that step is. There is a behavioral reason this mistake is so common. It is called loss aversion, a principle from behavioral economics that describes how humans feel the pain of losing money roughly twice as intensely as they feel the pleasure of gaining the same amount. So, when someone finally has $10,000 saved, the brain shifts into protection mode. The idea of putting that money anywhere that could theoretically go down in value feels physically uncomfortable. The market drops 10% in a month? That feels catastrophic. A savings account slowly loses 3% a year to inflation? That feels like nothing, because nothing dramatic is visible. This psychological asymmetry is not a character flaw. It is a deeply wired survival instinct. But in the modern financial landscape, that instinct consistently works against long-term wealth. The brain optimizes for avoiding visible pain, even when invisible erosion is the greater threat. Here is the mental model that changes how most people think about money. Imagine two workers. Both start with $10,000 at age 30. The first keeps the money in a savings account at 0.5% interest. The second invests in a low-cost index fund, returning 7% annually. Neither adds another dollar. They simply leave their money alone. By age 40, the first worker has about $10,511. Nate, the second, has approximately $19,672. By age 50, the first has around $11,050. The second has $38,697. By age 60, the gap is almost surreal. The savings account holds roughly $11,614, while the investment portfolio has grown to $76,123. Same decade, same starting capital. The only variable is the vehicle the money was placed into. This is compound interest, and it rewards patience so disproportionately that Albert Einstein reportedly called it the eighth wonder of the world. Whether or not he actually said that, the math does not argue. Rather than investing, many people who hit $10,000 in savings fall into one of three common patterns. Some spend it: a vacation, a car upgrade, a renovation, rationalizing that they earned it and can save again. Some keep saving the same way, adding more to the same low-yield account, and essentially building a larger block of ice on the same warm counter. And some wait, telling themselves they will invest once they understand it better, once the market is less volatile, once the time feels right. That last group often waits years, sometimes decades. Each of these patterns has a different surface justification, but the same underlying result. The compounding clock never starts. And because compound growth is exponential rather than linear, every year delayed does not just cost that year's growth. It costs the growth that growth would have generated. A single year of delay at 7% does not cost 7%. It costs every future return that 7% would have compounded into. The corrective path is not complicated. It does not require a financial advisor, a premium app, or an economics degree. And it requires three things: a clear allocation framework, the right account type, and consistency. First, the allocation framework. The recommended structure for someone with $10,000 is to divide it into two categories. 3 to 6 months of living expenses stay liquid, meaning they stay in a high-yield savings account, not a standard one. High-yield savings accounts at many online banks currently offer between 4% and 5% interest annually, which still does not beat a strong market return, but significantly reduces inflation erosion. Whatever is left beyond that emergency reserve, even if that is only $2,000 or $3,000, becomes the investment foundation. Second, the right account type. For most people in their earning years, a tax-advantaged account is the most efficient starting point. A Roth IRA, for example, allows investments to grow completely tax-free. On a 30-year timeline, the difference between paying taxes inside versus outside a Roth account can easily represent tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes more. This is not a loophole or an elite strategy. It is a publicly available structure that most people simply do not use. Third, consistency. Once the investment account is open and funded, automating a monthly contribution, even $100 or $200, removes the need for repeated willpower and decision-making. Automation converts investing from an active choice made under emotional pressure into a passive system that runs independently of mood, market headlines, or motivation levels. Not all investments are created equal, and this is where some people overcorrect, moving from the inertia of cash savings to the chaos of speculative trading. Individual stock picking, cryptocurrency timing, options trading. These are not investment strategies for someone building a foundation. They are high-variance bets that can accelerate wealth or eliminate it, and they require knowledge and risk tolerance that most beginners do not yet have. The most evidence-supported starting point for long-term wealth building is the low-cost index fund. An index fund tracks a broad market, like the S&P 500, and holds small pieces of hundreds of companies simultaneously. This diversification reduces the risk of any single company collapsing and destroying the portfolio. The fees are minimal, the historical performance is well documented, and crucially, it requires no daily management. The market does the work. Here is the uncomfortable truth underneath all of this. The gap between those who build wealth and those who do not is not primarily an income gap. Studies consistently show that high earners with no investment strategy fall behind moderate earners with sound ones. The gap is a behavior and knowledge gap, specifically the knowledge of when to stop saving, like it is the goal, and start investing, like it is the tool. A person earning $60,000 a year who invests $300 monthly, starting at 25, will, by historical averages, accumulate more wealth by retirement than a person earning $100,000 a year who keeps everything in savings. The math is not theoretical. It is documented. The variable that separates the outcomes is not income, as it is the decision to let money compound rather than sit. To bring this into a clear visual framework, Think of personal finance as a three-stage ladder. The first rung is financial stability, building an emergency fund, eliminating high-interest debt, covering essential expenses. Most financial content lives here. The second rung is financial foundation. This is where the $10,000 milestone sits and where the investment strategy must begin. The third rung is financial growth, the compounding phase where time and consistency do the heavy lifting. The mistake described throughout this entire video is staying on the first rung after the second is already within reach. It is using stability tools, savings accounts, cash reserves, to try to solve a growth problem. Every rung requires different instruments. Recognizing which rung is occupied at any given moment is one of the most practically valuable forms of financial literacy. Saving $10,000 is genuinely hard. It takes discipline, sacrifice, and time. That achievement deserves real acknowledgement. But the financial system does not reward discipline alone. It rewards discipline plus strategy. Money sitting still is not safe. It is slowly being outpaced by inflation, opportunity cost, and time. The moment that $10,000 exists beyond the emergency fund threshold, the single most valuable decision available is no longer about how to save more. It is about where to put what is already there. The goal of wealth is not to protect a number. It is to build a system that grows independent of effort. That system is not available in a savings account. It starts the moment money is moved from a place that holds value to a place that builds it. If this reframed how saving and investing actually work, or if it clarified a step that has been unclear, consider sharing this with someone who just hit their first savings milestone. They may be standing at the exact decision point this video covers. And if this channel delivers the kind of financial clarity worth coming back to, subscribing takes 1 second and ensures the next video finds its way through. New content drops every week, built to make complex financial decisions simple, visual, and actionable.